Okay, to find a spot, z-scores and percentages on page 13. Is that where we left off? Does that make sense? Okay, is this our one where we left off at? This makes sense to you? Okay, what z-score corresponds to having 40% below it? So last lesson we learned we knew the z-score and we could figure out the percent. Now we know the percent and we're going to go opposite and figure out the z-score. Okay, I'm a visual person. I'm going to draw this. You do not have to draw it, but it's nice to see what we're doing. What z-score corresponds to having 40% below it? Does this drawing make sense to you? 40% is below. I already know my z-score will be positive or negative? Negative, because you're going to for sure be under halfway, right? 40% or below you. Okay, you ready? The button that we're going to push is second vars. Do you remember we did that yesterday? Because yesterday we did the normal CDF. So second vars gets you to distribute. And now we're going to do inverse norm. The inverse. So we're inversing the normal distribution curve. That's what this is all meaning. Inversing the normal distribution curve. And here's what you have to put in. The percent below in decimal form. So I'm going to type 0.4 because I have to move 40% to a decimal. And that is the z-score. And that's it. The z-score. Does that z-score make sense on your curve? Okay, the next question says 10% above. So think about where that would be. 10% of the people are better than you. That's what you've scored on your test. Where are you if 10% scored higher than you? You're here, right? Because you're still better than 90% of the people. Okay, so when we do this button, we're going to inverse norm. What are we going to put in there? So I said you have to write it percent below in decimal form. So how much is below us if we're there? 0.9. So same button, inverse norm, 0.9. Your z-score would be 1.28. Okay, you're 1.28 standard deviations above the average test taker. That's what that means. Okay, does the next question say a mean of 160? Okay, given a mean of 160, a standard deviation of 4.2, what percent is above 150? So 160 is in the middle. And you scored a 150, So you're on this side. What percentage is above that? Okay, we did this calculator button yesterday. Remember the normal CDF. The domain says left to right, or low to high. So what's the lowest? 150. What's the highest? We're just going to go forever. So then what do we have to type into our calculator? Just a bunch of 9s. Comma, mean. Comma, standard. You guys have that written down on your cheat sheet, right? You should be having this on your cheat sheet: low, high, comma, mean, comma, standard. Okay, can you tell me what percent? Can you type that in now? Okay, so if this, well, you can't have a test of 160. Let's say a bowling, this is a bowling score of 160. If you scored in the league, if you scored a 150, 99.1% of the bowlers are better than you. That's what that would mean. Okay? Okay. Given the mean of this standard deviation, what percent is between? So what percent is normal CDF? Normal CDF. What's the low to the high? What am I going from between? So I'm going to go from 125 to 130 with a mean with a standard deviation. Yep. You either get given something below, something above, or something between. So you're either using two numbers, or somewhere you're putting a negative 999 or a positive 999. Visually, that's what it's representing. Yeah. Okay, next example. Bowling scores. Oh, sorry. Are we good with that number? 79.7%? Everyone got it working? A mean of 128, standard deviation of 1.9. 40% of bowlers scored below what? Okay, I'm given a percent. So which button do I use now when I'm given a percent? This one was what percent? So I use normal CDF. This one gives me a percent. So which one is this one? Inverse. So I'm going to inverse norm the percent below, so 0.4. And I got a z-score of negative 0.25 when I did that. Okay, this doesn't help me though. Z-scores and the real data. Z-scores are 0, 1, 2, 3, 4, or sorry, 1, 2, 3, negative 1, 2, 3. That's Z-score. How do I change my language from Z-score to the real life scores? Do you remember what to do? We have a formula. Z equals, do you remember this? This is on your sheet, don't write this down. Do you remember that formula from yesterday? You have it on your sheet already? So be looking at your sheet. So we have a Z-score of negative 0.25. What did we score? That's what I want to know now. Okay, what should I do with my algebra here? What's my first step? I should times those, okay? This is what I would really like you to do. I have it on there and I don't want to round it, so I'm just gonna go times 1.9 equals, okay? Then, what's my other algebra step? I need to get x alone. So now I would need to add 128. Add 128. My bowling score is 127.5, but I guess if this is a bowling score, we'll have to probably say 128, right? Because you can't bowl. You can't bowl with half points, so. Okay, same bowling question. 10% of bowlers are above what kind of bowling score? Okay, so first of all, I'm going to inverse norm, okay, because I have a percent. When you have a percent, you're inversing. Okay, what do I put here? 0.9. Okay, this formula always has you using the below it percentage. Okay, so you have to inverse 0.9. Okay, this feature only works with z-scores. So now we go from a z-score to our bowling score. So 1.28 equals my score minus mean over standard. Okay, I'm going to times and then add, okay? And I'm going to be doing that in my calculator. I'm going to times those and then I will add, and I'm not going to round at all. So keep it, times, add, and it is a bowling score, so we'll just go rounding to the nearest whole number. Does that make sense? I thought it would have been higher there, but. Okay, same question. Bowling scores. The middle 50% of the bowlers. That's what I want to know. So the middle 50% of this curve. Okay. Don't forget that there's a line right there, right? That's the halfway. How much percent is below you from there? How are we going to figure this out? 25%. 25%. So I'm going to inverse norm 0.25, right? Because if there's 50 in the middle, these outsides will be 50, so divided by 2, that's kind of where I would have gone with my math. Equals a z-score of negative 0.67. Okay. I'm also going to tell you this hint. No, I'll tell you it after. Okay. Give me the bowling score. So negative 0.67 equals my score minus 128 over 1.9. Do we have our algebra down? Times, add 128. I'm getting a bowling score of 127 if I round it. Okay, if you are in this position on the curve, how much of the bowlers are below you? What percent of the bowlers are below you now over here? 75%. Okay, so we're inversing norm 0.75. Did you notice 0.67 and negative 0.67? They're like the reflection of each other. Does that make sense on this curve? Okay, and again, straight into your calculator times what you have in there. Don't round. Times, then add. So if you scored between 127 and 129, you are in the middle 50% of the bowlers.
Wait, so I got, just a second, I got up the in norm and like, after that, what do I multiply by?
So you got that, inverse norm. I multiply by this bottom, because I have to get rid of the divider. So I'm going to multiply, right? Does that make sense? And then the 1.9 would be gone. And then to get x alone here, you're going to still have to add 128, right? I'm just using my algebra to get everything out of there. So get rid of the divider by timesing, and get rid of the subtract and add. Did you get it? 129?
Yeah.
Yep. Okay. So this is what mine looked like straight onto my calculator. I got that, and I just went times, answer, add, answer. Okay, let's talk about your cheat sheet. Make sure you have these things on there. Okay, to get the percent, that's the button you do. To get the percent, have you written low, high, mean, standard? to get a percent, that's what you use. Maybe you want to write yourself a note that sometimes you need to place a negative 999 in that spot, and sometimes you need to place a 99999 in that spot. Have you written yourself a note that maybe that's what you want?
Wait, which one is sometimes negative 9?
If you are below, you would want that in there. And if you ever are above, you would want that in that position, right? If you're below something, you're going to want the negative 999 as a low, and if you're above, you're going to want to put the 999 into a high spot. If you are on a standard curve, when we talk about z-scores, so if I am talking strictly about z-scores, not bowling scores of 128, then if I'm a z-score, do you understand the middle is always 0 and it's always going up by ones, okay? So that is always when you're trying to find a percent normal distribution. This is what I would probably write on my cheat sheet. Okay, the other is the other way. So I'm given the percent. So this is the opposite. So this time I've been giving you a percent and you got to get the x. Now the button is the inverse norm.
Yes, in decimal.
Always in decimal form. You have to make sure it's, bless you, bless you. Always in decimal form. Make sure you've written yourself a note for that. And you got to write yourself a note that it's always below. So I gave you 2 examples and I said 10% was above you. Boom, 0.9. You need to understand if I had written in 0.1 instead of 0.9, I should notice that my mistake has happened because my z-score would have been negative. If 10% is above you, you are a positive z-score, right? Okay, then you're going to have to use the z-score formula to get back to what your actual x is in real life, okay? Because z-scores don't mean anything to your data until you convert it back to your data, right? Whether you're talking about a test score or a bowling score or whatever.